Marias, who's done a lot to say, should be starting next week. It's been a long season for the Blues fans, but this has been worth the wait. 18-10-118 to Port 9-10-64.
Alrighty, hello, welcome to the CREEDCAST. My name's Dave, and as always, we appreciate you joining us for the first of a couple of weeks in which we will be running through two games on the podcast. So if there's a bit more brevity to the men's review coming up, we apologise, but also not sorry, because, and I assume most listening won't be either. But we'll get through the men's first, and then take a quick break, and then we'll get to the women's opener at the end of the episode as well, to give them their time. It is just that first couple of weeks of the women's season that crosses over with the men's, but unlike last year, there is not many men's games to go. As we know, our season is already over as a competitive outfit for finals contention, and we once again go down on Saturday afternoon to Carlton, 18-10, 118 to 9-10-64. Felt a bit like when the Jurassic Park franchise was rebooted with Jurassic World. Everyone should have known it was a bad idea, and we, all of us fans going into watching us play Carlton, probably knew what was going to happen, but we went through it anyway, and lo and behold, the dinosaurs escaped again, and we get absolutely chewed up and spat out by a Carlton outfit led by Harry Mackay, and a lot of players playing very, very good football, and unfortunately, we did not come to the party particularly early. And for much of the second half as well. It was really quite Bruise Free Footy, I think, was the term that you mentioned to me, Jamie, when we caught up on Sunday at Alberton for the women's game, which, again, we'll talk about later on. But good evening to you, and it's unfortunate.
Hello.
It's unfortunate how many times we've said Bruise Free Footy this year, isn't it?
It is, and hello to everyone, and I echo your sentiments. Thank you, everyone, who's still hanging on and consuming what we're doing at the moment. It is a tough slog. It has been a tough slog. We have renewed hope with the AFLW season, so I hope a lot of you are sticking around for that. If you're not, that's fair enough. We understand everyone can get a bit footy fatigued this time of the year, particularly if the men's season hasn't gone so well. But we'll get into that later, like you said. I've rarely seen a more bruise-free first 15 minutes of a game that extended into the first quarter and the first half as a whole. You can't categorize it any other way than that. It was insipid.
Mm-hmm.
It was a team that quite clearly is running on an oily rag, and the queue is firmly in the rack, which is disappointing because, in my opinion, I think it was a lot of the senior leaders that let us down early, apart from the obvious few. And it's a great contrast in weeks of football where we stuck it to Freo. And my comments off the back of that were that our senior leaders actually lifted to a high degree. It was an even spread across the senior leaders, and they propped up everyone underneath as a result. And this kind of went the other way. And to the Patreon members, I hope you didn't change your tip based on my optimism of the game on Thursday. In actual fact, the punters knew exactly where the result was going to land, and I thought the odds were pretty generous in Carlton's favour, but they came with a point to prove, is what it looked like, and we basically just went to Melbourne to for Travis Boak to say goodbye to our Vic supporters, who, credit to them, they always show up, and they deserve better because they don't get to see our side as much. And I think of guys like Stu and Simon when he ventures down for games like that, and any other person supporting Port Adelaide and Victoria. I feel sorry for them because what they saw in the first half was quite terrible. To the boys' credit, if you want to pay them any, they actually showed up in the second half, and I think we won it by a point. So make of that what you will. But yeah, Bruise Free Footy.
Yeah.
Like you said, unacceptable at any level of football.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. It was, I think, particularly beloved Port fan was at the game. I don't know. I don't actually remember seeing photos of Robbie, but I assume he was there. But I saw Robbie Gray's wife, of course, Belle, posting on Instagram a few photos of the kids down at the boundary with Trav pre-game, which was cool to see. So obviously them based over in Vic. Robbie doing the Lord's work in scouting our future heroes over there. But yeah, it's unfortunate, whether it be those guys or, of course, the faithful over there and the Victorian faithful are very, very faithful and get into games regardless of the results. But unfortunately, once again, the team just let them down. It's a start. It's probably a point to start on before we can look at a few watches and spots with players and whatnot in a bit. But if we can start in some general stats areas, and of course the one that really really stands out. I think the contested possession tightened up a bit, but I know at one point I reckon I saw plus 46 or minus 46 as far as it pertains to us as an outfit. I think it ended up at minus 36 in the end, but it was getting, starting to get close to nudging 50 if we didn't arrest. We just had a good last 10 minutes, basically. Scored a couple of goals and got the footy, and, obviously probably Carlton to put their cue in the rack. The contested numbers, I thought we'd started to, not that we were ever going to really get much improvement on it for this year, but I thought, over the last few weeks, we'd at least tried to, that Freo game was a good effort, and maybe just Freo aren't as good in that area and as some of the ball control things as well. But those contested numbers are just shocking, aren't they? Like, that just speaks to just before I let you go, where minus 14 is the season differential between the teams, and then it's minus 36. So again, we see an area where while we are down on the year, it's not that bad. So that means they've done more, we've done less, however way you want to see how it turned out. But yours and my eye test, that's just Bruise Free Footy. And with some of the guys that we have out there, you just yes, we're missing some
beggars belief.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that can still not make sure that gap isn't as big as that, and that's just to me, that's some real poor cue in the rack, not putting complete effort in kind of stuff from the side.
Yeah, I obviously agree. I mean, we're looking at CBAs that contain Butters, Wines, Drew, Rosie at times, and those are the guys that, if anything, that's what you would expect at a minimum. And Ollie ends up with 3 contested possessions, which is rare. And look, like, I don't know how much people are aware, and we've briefly touched on it, but apparently there's a huge wave of illness. The team has been succumbed by the people who are left. That is, ever since the Hawthorn game, I believe it's been flagged by a few people now. Ollie Wines himself on SEN Radio, the captain Connor Rosie. So not only are we hampered by injury, there's a lot of players playing ill, and unfortunately, I think came up earlier in the season in regards to Michael Jordan's flu game in the 90s, where he absolutely blew the lights out. We're nowhere near that, and players, whether that has an impact or not, to play devil's advocate, I think it would, but it's in no way an out. But like I said, when you've got Ollie, Bokey, Butters, Drew, Rosie going through CBAs and a stoppage, contested numbers should just not be that. The gape should not be that big to insert a innuendo there. But it's not only contested possession. Like, we lost disposal as a whole by 69. To put another innuendo in there. So not only are we minus 36 in contested possession, we're minus 40 odd in our uncontested possession. So you marry those two together, and we got what we got in the first half, particularly. We only won tackles by it was 11 in the end, and you would expect that if you've got your hands on the footy that much less. So it's definitely an area that needs high magnification in the off season, because I think someone brought it up on radio during the week. It's when Port's playing at their best over the last decade or so, contested possession or stoppage is our one word, like if that's where we have been winning games of football from, and it's
Hmm.
what we not rest our laurels on, but you get what I'm saying over the course of the last decade. But um, this year, in a year where we thought uh, at our best, we'd be challenging for finals, but at a minimum, our midfield would be keeping us there and thereabouts, and it just hasn't happened, which we've brought up before. We've brought up a lot of times, too many, in
Hmm.
fact, and they really need to sort it out going into next year. Obviously, moving pieces, no continuity whatsoever. I think we've had one or two players play every game this year, which isn't ideal. We've used a lot of players on our list. Um, yeah, none of that is to excuse the discrepancy in contested possession, which is the point that you brought up in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, and then when you marry that up with the clearance numbers, obviously, particularly at the centre clearance, we get smashed by
Mm.
12, 19.7 was the centre clearance number, and that's just a horrible, horrible gap. Like often that can be pretty close, and I mean, the gap between the two teams on the year is only two, so that means Carlton have gone plus 10 on the differential between the team for the year. We were, three less than our average on the year, and Carlton went at seven, had seven more centre clearance. So they really got domination. I mean, that's where your field position starts, and then if you're already playing a team that turns the ball over and doesn't dispose of the ball nearly as well, disposal efficiency obviously was 76% for Carlton and 70.9 for us. So if you're getting field position from centre clearance more often than not, well, not just more often than not, but an incredibly large discrepancy. And then so you go from that, you get centre clearance, you get the ball in your front half, and then stuff like post stoppage and post clearance, like contested possession, they were plus 25 at the post clearance contested possession. Post clearance ground ball gets plus 16. So everything once it got out of clearance, regardless, and they're winning them anyway. They were still competing for the ball better outside of the clearance, and just at every facet of the game, they're getting it in their front half, and then they're being harder at the ball in that area as well. Like when you look at the tackle numbers, like you say, we only we had 53 tackles for the game versus their 42, but then tackles inside 50, which is helped by the fact they had 65 inside 50s versus our 39 or whatever it was. They had 16 tackles inside 50 versus our three. So, a fair hunk almost. I mean, we're talking like 40% roughly of their tackles that they laid for the match were in their front 50. That's insane numbers.
Jesus.
And
Yeah.
that's just helped by the fact they had such domination at clearance. We're just that little bit softer overall in the game as far as our contest goes. And that just, you
Hmm.
marry all those stats together, it just makes for some bleak reading. It's put me in the depths of despair again as I go through it, even though I did the stats pack for myself last night.
Oh, yeah. Nothing to really hang your hat on.
Mm,
Yeah, as you well know, I had some family over on Saturday, so I was more than happy to turn the game off at half time. And then, yeah, funnily enough, that's, yeah, when we came to play. So maybe I shouldn't have watched any of the game in traditional football superstitious manner, because maybe would have showed up from pool one. Um, but yeah, the stats don't make for good reading. There's a couple of things that if you want to dive deep into that you could take away again with a lens to next year. Hit outs being one, efficiency inside 50 again, which I think we've brought up a number of times,
mm,
but in losses to suggest that if you get it right in transition, then that's the type of stuff that we're capable of. But like when what does it matter? The game effectively didn't mean anything
mm,
um, to us. It clearly meant more to Carlton, and it ensued accordingly. Even still, I'm looking at pieces of the game. I'm looking for positives with a lens to next year. And although some of yeah, so Ollie Wines had a pretty poor game overall, and I'm sure we'll touch on Ollie Wines before we wrap this episode up vis-a-vis suspension. Um, yeah, like some players who you expect to do better didn't perform, but I think we saw more positive signs from some of our younger players. And was it the first game effectively that Moraes, Berry, and Whitlock all played together, or was that last week?
I mean, they're all in the site. Like,
Moraes came on as a sub. I think it's more Moraes played more of this game,
that's what I
so
was
it kind
about
of
to
stands
say.
out.
Like extrapolate
Yeah,
the point. Like it's the first game they've all played. 3/4 of the game together
decent
at
minutes.
least. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think all three of them had things to write home about in positive ways and in different ways as well. I think just back to, I mean, we can just touch on it now since I did just read the news just before you popped on for the call tonight that Wines has failed in his appeal to overturn, the club's failed in their appeal to overturn his suspension. So he is, unless there's further appeals, it's looking like he's going to be out for Boak's last game, which is unfortunate. And it's probably unfortunate for him that he had probably one of his poorer games of the last 2 years, really. In this one, in Boak's last game over there, and Wines wouldn't have been expecting it to be, but it ultimately turned out to be his last game playing with Boak, which I'm sure stings. And we've loved Ollie's work over the last couple of years, so we're certainly not still pretty comfortable with him being. He's going to be a real veteran presence for us next year as Boak drops out. He's going to be the veteran leader of that midfield group for the next couple of years, hopefully. So it's disappointing he had a poor game, and then. I mean, has he been ill? Like, I don't know if there was any mention. Ollie, yeah. Has he been ill?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. Because when Boki announced that he was going to retire, Ollie went on SEN SA in the morning with Mark Bickley and Jared Walsh, and he sounded clogged up, and they asked him like, you sound a bit ill there. Like, is everything okay? And Ollie said, yeah, like we've all got sick, and it was from that Hawthorn game in particular, going down and playing in like 3-degree weather.
Yeah.
And then in the weeks, and so if you want to play devil's advocate, if you want to be a bit of an apologist, there was the showdown immediately after that, and Rosie went out with illness, and we played one of our poorest performances, not only of the year, but in recent times. The week after that, I think someone went out with illness, and then we had Lockie Jones go out with illness at one stage throughout that period. So, Ollie has definitely been battling it for the last month. And again, clubs don't announce the breadth of what something like that, or how much it is impacting, or how many people. Because when it comes to colds and flus, football clubs,
Yeah.
it's not an injury, but if it's impacting a large group of people, so much so that every week someone's kind of pulling out with illness almost, I think it's seriously impacted certain players. And I mean, even Ollie's had good games after that Hawthorn match himself, but again, you battled a bit of sickness during the school holidays here in South Australia, and you can have good days and you can have bad days. So,
Yeah.
you think you're over it, and then a poor sleep or something different can knock you back a few pegs. So yes, to answer your question, he definitely got affected.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's unfortunate. You just see when you see Ollie Wines with 15 disposals and three contested, it's just like those are just so. Those numbers are so alien to what we know of him, and what certainly what we know of him this year, despite the malaise that the side has found itself in 2025. Wines has kind of risen above that for most of the year, so it is disappointing. And he had 66% time on ground, which is probably, like, he often is a little bit lower anyway, so I don't think that's much less than like in his 70s. But it's probably maybe even a little bit less than more, even less than usual as well. So. Yeah, unfortunate for Ollie, but it's just unfortunate he's rubbed out for the rest of this year. And unfortunately, if it stands up to what it is, and it means he misses the first 2 games of the Josh Carr era for premiership points as well. So that's disappointing as well. But that's more something to think about for next year. But Let's go back to try to positive negative sandwich it a little bit. You did mention the youngsters before, and the likes of Murray's and Berry, and I guess Whitlock we can bring into this, and maybe Whitlock's a good one to start on. Really, really nice to see him to take the most of limited opportunities and kick 3 goals, 3 nice goals. Looked relatively calm and composed in marking the ball well, and just and making a battle for his opponents as well. It was really nice. It was really one of the few bright spots in watching this game was watching Whitlock kind of just look at reasonable ease in the AFL.
Absolutely. And I mean, for those of us, and include myself in that, who had witnessed a little bit of SANFL and kept finger somewhat on the pulse, just to say like, oh, hold sway, he's not quite ready, but in time, da 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 da, etc. etc. A game like that certainly shows you that again, us nuffy folk with swiping Dorito crumbs off our bellies, to recall a quote from last week. Yeah, we clearly don't know as much as we think we do. And again, that's why we tend to sway to the apologist side of things on this podcast. But that's another topic altogether. The fact of the matter is, yeah, Jack Whitlock was one of those few who was flying the flag early and didn't let up in his endeavour. Obviously, still fresh and raw to AFL football, but he didn't give up, and that's all you can ask for. I think he had his opposing, young ruckman kick a goal on him early, but he did his darndest to provide an option, and on a few occasions, yeah, kick it through the big sticks, and then on some other occasions, not getting quite good supply from teammates, which maybe could have netted him 1 or 2 more. But yeah, a huge positive, and to chuck him into the bucket with the 2 others that we've seen a bit more from this year, who all came from the same draft, very promising signs moving forward, and it could shape as being one of our better drafts in time to come. Not to put too much undue pressure on these guys, but they're all showing. Whitlock, obviously, a very small sample size in comparison to Murray's and Berry. But they're all showing attributes, which is a word that I've brought up a few times recently, attributes that we all know, whether we're in or outside of a club, that extrapolating out with experience and time, kind of the same thing I said there, but you see them evolving into the prototype AFL players in their respective positions. So very happy for Jack, and especially because he finally got to kick his first goal too, which always adds a nice layer to it.
Yeah, no, it really does. And that was kind of some of the few highlight moments, I guess, of the game. Was watching him kind of in real elation after that first one, everyone getting around him, which was wonderful. And then a few little moments with, I mean, he links up with Berry a couple of times. Unfortunately, it was very, very close. It felt like to them linking up for a goal, like one assisting the other. I can't remember what the sequence exactly what ended up. But Berry had some great moments of run through the middle that were really, really exciting.
I agree.
He continued run and work rate to stay with the play, even though he collected off half back and then end up at the front half of the forward, in the going forward as well. And as the plays sequenced down, he stayed with it and remained an option. He continues just to show those little glimpses of what we clearly saw in him in the draft. Does Joe Berry? I'm really excited for kind of him now having the taste of AFL, but then looking forward to 2026, like him having this taste and then taking that into another preseason, because their first preseason is in the system. They're kind of like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, kind of like, oh, this is all great and new to us, but they don't actually have that on the ground experience. And now they go into all 3 of these guys now. It's wonderful. Like back to Whitlock for a moment, like he's kicked a goal in the AFL. Like he's going into his next preseason with that already out of his mind. Like he's not like, oh, I've been a year in the AFL and haven't even kicked a goal because I haven't had an opportunity or I've had limited opportunities. He's kicked a bag of 3. That gives you a little bit of quiet confidence that you can do it. And Joe Berry takes that experience, of course, Murray's as well. But I just back to Berry for a moment. I just he's just seeing more and more of those little glimpses of what clearly was like Robbie Gray, as we mentioned earlier, what he was seeing in the likes of Joe Berry.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm really impressed with some of the glimpses that Joe Barry is showing, but also what he's doing off the ball. I think when we got exposed to him earlier in the year, and sorry, I should be making it about him, when he was exposed to AFL football earlier in the year, it was a bit of, I'm not really sure what to do with my hands
Yeah.
to reference Talladega Nights. It
Yeah.
was he wanted to do some stuff, but he didn't, from my perspective, it didn't really know how he fit. He was fresh, easily excluded from the game from opponents and whatnot. But um, before I finish on that, I know that a lot of supporters have been asking for Moraes to get constant minutes at AFL level and
Mhm.
Berry and Whitlock, expose them to AFL football. But I tend to think that the uh, continuity in SANFL football that they have all played has actually held them in good stead to come in now at the end of the AFL season and show a bit more. Um, Now, would that have happened if they had a consistent run at AFL? I'm not sure. We don't know, but I tend to believe that keeping them in SANFL and just letting them settle, breathe, learn how to play football against men, which is
Mhm.
underrated after these guys in particular coming from under 18s competitions in Victoria. Um, I believe has held them in good stead. And then yeah, Berry now, some of the run that he's providing, but yeah, it's just kind of like a symbiotic relationship that some players have with the football, that when they're in the vicinity it's almost like a magnetic attraction.
Mhm.
And but not only that, it's the timing of some of those runs, whether it be off of a crumb or to support with an overlap handball. But not only that, I also take joy in the fact that he laid a few crunching tackles, which impressed me,
Mhm.
which was vacant from his game earlier in the season and had about 11 pressure acts, I think. So not shooting the lights out, but we're looking for signs, we're looking for attributes. And I think that so Whitlock, Berry have definitely showed her, and Moraes has real chops about him. I mean, he's played, what was it, 47% time on ground and had 19 disposals. Like
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. I think he's really showing a lot, and it's a certain balance to his game that I like. And the benefit is that all three of these players all offer something a bit different. But
Mhm.
Christian Moraes could be one of the sliders out of the 2024 draft that when we look back on it in 3 to 5 years' time, and I'm very happy that we've got a guy like him. We were rapt when he got drafted, how he conducted himself, and as he entered this first year of AFL football. Um, Tough. I mean, I think he was, top five for contested possessions for us on the day in the end as well.
Yeah.
Ground ball gets was top 4 or 5 from what I'm quickly looking at on my stat sheet here. And kicked a goal himself, link up. Yeah, very warming to the cockles. Seeing or just projecting forward and like you mentioned, what another AFL preseason can do to their games. And obviously, we're all cognizant to the sophomore blues, or sophomore sads,
Yeah.
whatever, however you categorize it. Yeah, it's always there lurking, but you judge that in real time if it's happening. But all we can do now is project in hope, and these guys have shown enough of what they can do at this age and with this amount of experience that we get excited moving forward as a fan base.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I can't really think of it. You've really kind of summed up all three of their games and what we're excited about really, really well. There, that's you know,
Yeah, just hog the mic, Jamie.
no, I love that. That's like everything that I can kind of was kind of thinking and trying to metabolize it and how to say. You've done a really, really good job. So I was just trying to think of where I was going to go next, and I feel like I got to go a little bit of a spotlight that's starting to become quite alarming. And look, how we'll see how preseason goes if he's but just Willie Rioli. His year has just kind of fallen to bits, and we were kind of hoping to see something better. Like maybe one more good. Like we were talking on the Patreon show. Like it'd be nice to see him clear 30 goals for the season since he'd been sitting just above in the 25 odd goals. It seems like he's been there for a month or two now. He still just doesn't seem to be. He's suddenly just at the AFL level. And look, limited. It has to be. All of this talk has to be mitigated by the fact that the team just isn't functioning as a forward line well. We're not getting the ball down there enough. For Willie Rioli to be really effective, you need to be having upwards of high 40s into the 50, inside 50s, a competitive game. The last month or two, we've basically been losing inside 50s by 20 to 25 quite often, which is just a horribly stark difference. Not getting the ball in the front half enough. So that does affect the likes of Willie Rioli. But when we think back to the start of the year and you're throwing him into midfield even for a little bit against Richmond and just like what the Willie Rioli we saw at the front half of the season versus now, obviously there's some of that like the off-field stuff and how he's feeling. I'm hoping it is just injury, but you just with some of the whispers about how this year, I don't know anything. It's just like Rioli himself has said, I've thought about giving the game up, but like he also does want to give back to the game. There's that part of it. See how the back end of this year's gone, and I just hope it is injury. But I am alarmed with how precipitous the drop-off is, particularly the fact he is still playing. Like we're throwing him through the SN for which he's been going okay, I think, but he's not injured to the point that we've rubbed him out for the year. We're still trying to get games into him, and he's suddenly just a borderline completely ineffective when we used to say he was one of the...
Yeah, he's a non-factor.
Yeah, and it's just sad to see after we've loved his work right up until the middle of this year, really. Right up until the Mad Cuddlers game.
PP looks like a mad cuddler.
Yeah, great from you. Look, he's had a bad second half of the year. It's an understatement. I think he'll go on. He was on the first installment of Peeled. He was the first episode, the Port Adelaide podcast that's a bit intermittent. He said that he wants to play on because even with all the external hatred that comes his way, unfortunately, he needs, in his words, to paraphrase, he said that he needs to stay strong and he needs to show young, up-and-coming Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander kids that AFL football is an avenue that they can go down as they grow up. And his willingness to be a role model for them. But then also, I believe Ken Hinkley's been asked recently about Willie as well, and if Ken thinks he'll go on, and it was almost unequivocal, like yes, from the conversations that they've had. So it's interesting, when you put it that way about him going into the midfield. I'd actually forgotten about that, but it had happened a few times, and he was in a general level of fitness. I think he's been at his fittest when he just come over from West Coast that first year. I think it was his fittest, but at the end of the day, like we said, if you're at the absolute peak of your personal fitness or not, up till 6 weeks ago, he'd kicked 25 goals, and we were saying all that. And the last year, he'd kicked a swag of goals and whatnot. And he's on 27 now because he kicked 2 last week. I'm pretty confident to say that if our injury list was half as long as it is now, I don't think he would have come back in.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of just window dressing, for want of a better term. Just having someone who actually knows a bit about AFL football playing. And I mean, I say that, and we've got, a Rory Atkins who can't even get a final game at AFL level kind of thing, obviously with one in hand. But I think you know where I'm coming from. Like, I think that he is there because their selection committee are obviously after a certain balance, and at the moment it's a balance of experience at AFL level and not, and up and comers in the list.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I'll obviously hold sway on any major criticism until we see what happens coming into the off season, because there is a rumor, whether you believe it or not. And then if he does stay on, which I expect him to personally, it'll be how he comes back,
Yeah.
and how he gets himself back into shape. Family matters, personal fitness matters, everything under the sun.
Hmm.
Hopefully they can wash away. I believe his mum is pretty ill, if you believe some of the things you see online. So obviously
Yeah.
wish her well, and hope her health picks up. But hopefully the rest that has ailed him this year wash away to a large extent, and he can get himself back on track. Because precipitous downfall of his season has, yeah, it's been quite shocking
Yeah.
to see, because you don't see it in that way in AFL football very often, and it's unfortunate because even in commentary, it's kind of bordering still on a bit of, I don't know, I don't want to be heavy-handed,
It's uncomfortable,
but
how people
he
talk
tends to
about
be, yeah, exactly, and uncomfortable in the way that I think there has been other AFL players who haven't necessarily been in shape in previous years across the competition, and I'm not sure they've gotten the same level of just casual scrutiny throughout a commentary,
it. Mm.
yeah, like a telecast, which rubs me up the wrong way. But I don't want to really get into the depths
I think
of that
most
right now.
listening would understand kind of what you mean. Um,
Mm,
yeah, there's a lot of sensitivity training around the AFL needed at the moment, both players and commentators, it seems, which we shouldn't be there, but that's a different topic altogether. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's just like just the way people can talk about things can be done a far better, and particularly commentary teams, being that that is their job and their role. And commentary and Australian football still has that uncomfortable notion of like we want to be a little bit larrikin and lads about how we talk about footy, and sometimes you've actually just got to steer away from that a little bit. So, but yeah, back to just
I
finishing.
want a commentator to commentate football.
Yeah,
Is what I want. It's what I would expect
since we've
watching a
lost,
Premier League game. What
yeah,
I would expect watching an NBA, NBL, any sport. I want a commentator to actually commentate the game that they're
mm,
paid to commentate. So yeah, just to go off the back of what you said there.
yeah. Um, yeah, just finishing on Willie. I think it is just for me. Obviously, anything that happens in his life that he needs to attend to, like I'm more than supportive of. It's just purely from the football sense. It's been an odd fan experience for me to just know that he's not nearly
Mm.
100%, but we're still rolling him out there, which just like is that weird thing of like, well, he's fit enough to run out to the field and play, but he's clearly
Yeah,
just
yeah,
not there at the game speed and everything that we need him to be. So it's kind of like throwing him to the wolves a little bit. And I'm sure if he's putting his hand up and saying he's ready, good to play, and he probably feels like he can contribute, but he's probably also finding with whatever injury issues he's having, like he's getting out there thinking, oh yeah, I'm ready to go, and then
hmm
tries to go at a get up to gallop speed, so to speak, and just can't quite get there. And it's just it's an odd thing to watch. I'm sure it's odd for him to go through as well, but yeah, so I guess it's probably my major watch going in. I mean, there's a lot of watches going into a new coaching season that I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to season reviews in a couple of weeks, and as well as when we get to the point of previewing next year when it gets to it. But yeah, Willie will be right at the top of that list as to what we see, because the first half of this year would have been like, yeah, cool, Willie for another couple of years, no problems. And now you're just like, can we get full seasons
Scare
out?
factor.
Yeah,
That's what it all
yeah,
comes down to. And I
exactly.
would agree with the points that you just made, like, because at the end of the day, you are picked to play AFL football, and therefore, if you're going to cross that white line, you need to perform.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you open yourself up to scrutiny.
Mhm.
So yeah, everything you just said, yeah, I would definitely agree with. Good
Yeah.
points.
One more. I just wanted to talk. There was just one more forward because his name's right there. It's still an interesting. The Ollie Lord experience is still an interesting one. But he's still taken his limited opportunities a little bit better. Like he kicks one goal and it's a fairly good set shot again. Like we're seeing a bit more of that from him. It's just an interesting experience now that we throw Whitlock in there already, and just based on the 3 goals versus 1 alone, like we haven't seen Ollie Lord find a bag like that, and this the way Whitlock was finding space, but then maybe that's helped by Lord. There's a bit, and then obviously Georgiades as well. Georgiades had a quieter game as far as goal scoring goes. We're not that worried about Georgiades. Is just a proper spotlight going into next year, I think. So we're all good on that front. But I've been more okay with Ollie Lord over the last month, but I still don't know what that means for 2026. Particularly if Whitlock does, have a good finish to the season this week against the Gold Coast, and then has a good preseason. It's just like you already sit there and look at it and go borderline Whitlock. Might already be at the Lord level as far as where the selectors are looking. I think they'll go with Lord. If they had to pick one this week, they'd go with Lord because they're giving him the opportunity as the seniority thing. But Whitlock has closed that gap a lot quicker. Like I wasn't expecting that going into even the second half of the season, that Whitlock would close the gap on Lord. But you just got to go by eye test and what you see. And Whitlock, there's a little bit of Bambi on skates about how he took his first mark for his first goal, but it was just like also like he still took the mark. So it was just like, it's just, yeah, if you're still doing the thing and you're still learning how to use your, growing,
your frame.
Yeah, because you don't really finish growing until right at the age he is now. So, he's still filling out the frame and everything, and he's still contending at a point that you look at it and go, he's at least as impressive as Ollie Lord. So while I'm saying I'm giving Ollie Lord some credit for how he's bounced back in the last month, I'm still worried about his position going forward. It's a really weird place to be. So I'm wondering how you saw Lord's game. Again, limited stats, but I'm perplexed by how I feel about Lord in this current lineup.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, absolutely. Because he is in a bit of a holding zone from a selection point of view. I think, yeah, he has shown a little bit more over the last month, but it's just okay.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a guy who's played 30 games. And our comments in regards to Lachie Jones last year when he crossed that 50-game threshold is it's only really after 50 games that you can start to judge an AFL footballer. But people are obviously impatient with Lord. And we spoke about it recently, and I think it's because we all want him to do well. We all expect him to take that leap. And in regards to Jack Whitlock and that comparison, he's kicked the 3 goals in this match, but Ollie Lord also had his moments in the spotlight earlier in his career. But it's just where he's got to now after 30 games that leaves you scratching your head. Not to discount everything that we've spoken about Jack Whitlock so far, but he too is may be open to just a plateau of all plateaus, very similarly to Ollie Lord has. And I mean, Ollie Lord kicked 3 goals on his return against St Kilda earlier this year, so it's all just inconsistent. And yeah, you see flashes of impact, but it's nothing inspiring, which, like you said, leaves him exposed to just being more depth next year. Hopefully with a much healthier list of players to pick from. So it is an interesting watch. It'll be a watch for everyone to see. I believe he's contracted for 1 more year. I don't know if he'll be used in any trade negotiations or anything like that with Nasri signing at St Kilda. I'm not sure how active we will be, but there's always surprises around the corner. As far as I know, he loves being at Port Adelaide, so he needs to use that to fuel him going forward because there is going to be a very big competition for forward spots, particularly key forward spots in season 2026. I just don't, like you, I don't know what to make of him. I wish him all the very best. Love him to bits and want him to succeed at the highest level. but he's just not grabbing any games. And how much can you in this iteration of the Port Adelaide Football Club,
Yeah,
where we're in pretty dire straits, but a guy of similar age in Mitch Georgiadis has been flying the flag to no end all year. And yeah, and talent levels differ between players, but yeah, don't know what to make of him.
yeah. I was just having
At
a
the
look at some of
moment.
his just his numbers across the last 3 years, and it's kind of like his ability, like his 1v1 win percentage in his first year, like his first year breaking into the side in 2023, he won 37.7% of his 1v1s. 23% last year is down to 19% this year. Goals per
Mm,
game average has dropped like 1.2 the first year, one last year, zero point 0.8 this year. Like it's just the numbers. Like you just hope to at least
mm.
be staying at where you started at, and you maybe some ups and downs, but like it's just like, and they're not the huge drop offs, but it's just a drop off and then a plateau.
It's a downward trend though.
Yeah, because I just looked at a similar player of similar maybe ilk. I mean, Ollie Lord's played 33 games, kicked 32 goals, and I just had a look at someone who has kicked on this year really well. In Shannon Neal, he's played 42 matches, so nine more, but he's at 65 goals, which he went. He's
Oh, and he's a big boy.
yeah.
I got
He,
big raps on Shannon Neal.
yes, yeah. Again, great goal song, a great story behind it. Uh, his 1v1 percentage in his first year in 2022 was 100%, but that's because he had one and he won it. So not much to go by from there. But then you look at, like, so he didn't really feature much in 2022, but go 2023. Doesn't do a whole lot, but I think kicks a goal. But then 2024, his third year, last year he kicks 23 goals, and his offensive win percentage was 23. And again, not he didn't have too many games in 2023, but 23%. Then he's 22% last year, 22% this year. So he's kind of like found a level, but also he's probably finding like his game's growing and he's getting more leading opportunities and finding the space, and players are finding him. So he's not actually always having to go 1v1, but just some of those numbers are just, and his goal scoring accuracy, he was at 62% last year and 64% this year. A guy like Ollie Lord was at 54% last year, 52% this year, and even in his first year when he did kick 15 goals for us, he was at 48%. So his accuracy hasn't greatly improved, and these opportunities are becoming more limited based on both. We've got to always mitigate all of this by saying we're playing badly, so it's not going to help an Ollie Lord grow. But you'd still like to see him do a little bit more to try to make the case that I'm better than the sum of the part. Like it will get you give me the opportunities, will be even better when the team gets better. But like you look at it and go, Ollie Lord isn't. You want him beating down the door at this point, considering what you kind of have mentioned a few times, the tickets he got for himself in that final back in 2023.
Hmm.
They're almost spent by now, and we just haven't seen him kick on
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
they're all
Again,
gone.
he's
Yeah.
I've been okay with some of the things, little glimpses he's shown us. Like he's clearly got some skill, but it's just like there hasn't been enough. And I look at those numbers, I go,
Yeah, he's still only scratching the surface is what I
hmm,
was trying to blurt out. And the Shannon Neal comparison is a great one by you. Um, First of all, different body shapes.
hmm.
I'm fairly certain that Shannon Neal has the best squat, one rep max at Geelong, and you just look at him on field
These are the
and
niche stats you come to this podcast about because I didn't know
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. That's some of the weird shit you pick up when you digest AFL media and
Yeah.
particular interviews across the journey. But I mean, you look at Geelong, yeah, you look at him play, and he's got tree trunks for legs, and
Hmm.
things like that help. He's a bigger frame. He's obviously put more work into his strength
Hmm.
than Ollie Lord has for whatever reason. But then, yeah, games played, goals kicked. Um, And you can't even say that, well, Shannon Neal hasn't been the main focal point for Geelong, so therefore it opens up an avenue to goal because Lord hasn't been either.
Hmm.
In the 3 seasons since debuting, he's had a Charlie Dixon there or an absolute in form Georgiadis,
Todd
where Ollie
Marshall in the
Lord,
mix as well. you know,
Todd Marshall, yeah, last year as well. Um, Ollie Lord may be getting some of the bigger defenders because of the height difference between him and Georgiades. I don't think it's that often. So yeah, that comparison kind of puts it, I think, is a good one and puts it into perspective a little
yeah,
bit better. The tickets from that final are all gone. It is still an indicator of where he can perform, at
mhm.
what level he can perform at. But it's just getting there and getting there at a consistent level because you will be a player like him will be kept on the list being ours or a list being somewhere else because of his size, the depth factor that clubs crave.
Yeah, and it might just click for
But
him
it's
at
just
25 somewhere, like, and hopefully with us if it
it,
does. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's just yeah, it's bridging that gap between being a depth player and being someone who can hold their head up higher within an AFL forward line
mm,
more often than not, and perform at a decent level consistently. And we're just getting okay from Ollie Lord,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. No, I absolutely agree. It's why it's such an interesting one to bring up, and I was trying to give him some credit whilst also, just kind of the thing is, it's just it hasn't been enough for us to not be still asking the question about a player that, and that's to bring it back to kind of the Whitlocks and the other ones that could pop up is like Ollie Lord's opening the door to guys that were drafted 2 years after him or 3 years after him to. That's what he's like. Unfortunately, that's what happens is guys come like in the AFL system. If you kind of, maybe it's not your fault, you get some injuries or whatever, but if a guy comes up, that got drafted 2 or 3 years later than you, that starts showing something more sooner, then sometimes you can just lose your place, and maybe you might have figured it out at the AFL level at some point, but you just unfortunately, you've got to take your chances when you've got him, and he's probably just hasn't quite taken those chances yet. And as you said, probably end up on our list next year, and hopefully we'll get a couple more chances. But he's running out of those chances at Port Adelaide, and hopefully that doesn't mean at the AFL level. But I mean, if he's going to succeed, I want it to be for us though. So yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
next year's going to be a big one for him, and it's going to be a big preseason. He's probably got to look at the likes of the Shannon Neal growth from year to year, and whether again body shapes are all different, and sometimes you can't get to that. Some players are just blessed by whatever they do that they can just figure out what works for them. But that's part of your job as a player is figure out what works for you and to what kind of role a player you're going to be and figure out the way to get there. Riley Thilthorpe's done it after having
Yep.
severe injury and again similar age as well. Um, he had a big injury, but took that time to figure it out. A lot of players have had that kind of story where they have an injury that puts them out for a while and they figure out what they need to do for their body to be the ultimate. Robbie Gray's a great example for us. Obviously, completely
Hmm.
different players, but he was out for a year with an ACL and figured out what he needs to do to be the player he can be at a consistent high level. So, yeah, Ollie
Mm.
Lord's got a big preseason to come. I know there's probably a few of the main stars we'll talk about when we get to the votes.
Yeah, I've
So,
got one. I've
but
got
yes,
one
I was
more
about
before
to.
we move on.
Yes, yeah, bring it up. It could be what I was
I
about.
think we've given him a fair mulligan. I think we've rarely spoken about him, apart from fleeting acknowledgement that he is not performing at the level, but
Mm,
it's Jackson Mead.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we haven't really, not laid in the boot because we don't tend to do that,
No.
but just being objective, he's just fallen into no man's land a little bit from my point of view. And this is after 2024, where he played every game, albeit some of those as sub.
Mm,
Um, but he offered something even at a role player level, and then on some occasions a little bit higher than that at stages in season 2024. But this year, he had a career best disposal game against Richmond in round two,
mm,
which I think about 7 or 8 players did in that particular game. Um, but apart from that, he's just had a bad year,
yeah.
Jackson Mead, and he too. The only benefit for him this year is that he can go in a midfield rotation, and in what capacity that is fleeting potentially, particularly with the form that he's in. But last year, a good Jackson Mead for me obviously got his hands on the ball a lot more, but he
Mm.
worked a lot better in traffic. Whereas this year, I just see a guy constantly tying himself in knots. On top of the fact that he's just not getting anywhere near the amount of football that he was last year when he was making an impact on games at a role player minimum level last year.
Hmm.
He too needs to have, and he has crossed the 50 game threshold.
Yeah.
So he too needs a really good preseason because we're going to get a lot of troops back. And, we talk about Joe Barry, we talk about Moraes. The point at which Jackson Mead has regressed to isn't that far to get to for those younger players who, like we said, Moraes with less than 50% time on ground, getting 19 posies,
Hmm.
hold you in much better stead than where Jackson Mead finds himself at. And obviously, like, love, love the father-son nature of it all. Got a little bit emotional about it last year at certain stages. He was one of our most spotlighted players last year in
Hmm.
in that particular segment. But it's been a bad year, and players have bad years. It's how they come back from them. It is the most intriguing aspect of it all. But for a guy that, in my opinion, I think at most can only be a role player, and you can still get, 20, 25 disposals and still be a role player.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not sure Jackson Mead is ever going to put the team on his back or be the X factor within a football game that gets us over the line, if you know
Hmm.
where I'm coming from. And I mean that in the best possible way. And it's kind of what we were saying last year was that he predominantly is a role player, but that's okay because you need role players within a successful AFL football side. But he's just nowhere near either um, for the largest portion of this year.
Oh, you need
And
to.
yes, he's
Yeah.
got games, but to the chagrin of a lot of people, and he's probably lucky to get some of those games.
You've been saying that
We
for weeks now.
understand that,
I think
but
you in particular,
yeah,
not as apologists, but as uh, objectively, critically, critically thinking with critical, constructive criticism that you and we as a podcast try to do. You for weeks have been saying he's probably lucky to be inside still. Like that's just it's the nicest possible way of saying you really need to find some form, and he just hasn't found it. That's what's going to put him. When we get to the point of doing a preview next year, if he's on the list and whatever, like he's one of those names that we may not have. And well, I don't think going into 2026 right now, you sit there and go, if they're all things are equal and we're fully fit at the start of 2026. Obviously, we won't be. I mean, Powell-Pepper's one right away. We know we won't be ready at the start of 2026. But if you're just doing the exercise of at best 23, Jackson Mead's not in there if the whole side's fit. So and you would have hoped after maybe this year, if he's going to play most of the games, you'd expect to step up and maybe he's. Even if you're still, we're pretty stacked in some of those positions when we're fully fit, you'd hope that he's like next man up. But you don't. You kind of that's what your point, backing off of what I said about Whitlock and Lord, and then the other young guys that we gave some praise to in this game. Mead's letting those other guys catch up. It's even your Will Lorenzes and your Manny Liddy. He's still, he's a bit up and down, but he's coming to the side and he hasn't had an AFL preseason, but he's coming in and playing, starting to play that, some similar roles, different types of players at
you
times.
notice him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I thought, just as a quick aside, I thought Liddy's game was actually quite impressive.
Yeah.
and
It
again,
was.
that's part of the my lament of the leaders is that all of these other guys were the ones lifting and showing any fucking heart,
Hmm.
such as Liddy, who I thought had actually quite a good game as a winger.
Yeah.
But sorry to get back on your point.
Yeah, I know that was pretty much it. It is just, Liddy's getting the 5 score involvements. He's over 300 meters and, having, how many, like he had 6 marks in the game, and you're just not getting those numbers from Jackson Mead's getting 10 disposals, no marks. He's not going to score involvements. Under half of the meters gain, and different roles and different players. But like you just met Liddy's finding enough of the ball, considering he's not going to be like A1 route 2 down the field or anything like that. But he's finding a way to play his role, and that's to your point. Like
he's a support act.
Yeah, about Mead is he's a support act and there as a role player, but he's not playing. He's playing below the role was it's expected of him. Whereas you guys like Manny Liddy and co are playing up to the role and then sometimes going beyond the asking. And that's what you want from players. You want players to continually move where their ceiling is. That's what you hope for players, particularly young players. You want them to grow and grow and grow. And then when they get to the age of where it be your Bokes and co, like obviously Boke nearing retirement, still kind of trying to find that, those where he was in those last little moments of his career. And yeah, and then your Jackson Meads unfortunately are actually regressing a little bit rather than continuing to find a new level. So it is disappointing, particularly for a player that we obviously love with the father-son connection. But it's another real strong watch going into next year, and the likes of your Jackson Meads and some of those other guys that your Ollie Lords and Rioli again for a different reason more so. Like we know Rioli's greatness is exactly what we want, but a few of those guys watches for various reasons, but some guys that we've loved at times, but it's going to be an interesting off season for them all to find that form and that strength and what they need to do to re-implant themselves as proper AFL talents that we would have liked them to be. So anyone else you want to touch on before we get to start? I mean, I guess one that I just want to make mention of, he could turn up and vote, I'm not sure. Jordan Sweet had an interesting game. I think he gets a bit of a bath from DeConing early, but he still gets the numbers. He gets clearances, he gets score involvements.
Yeah.
He gets some numbers, and I think that's a credit to him that he can find, if he's getting beaten by someone who's just, and it's not helped by the fact that the team was just off. And so, but I think Sweet that gets a lot of great numbers still for who he is. Like, he gets the score involvements and decent disposal efficiencies. He gets getting clearance numbers and contested. I was about to say contested clearances. Some of them were contested. Contested possessions. Like it's an all-round game from him. Just probably gets a bit of a bath from a guy that was an entire team that was just in rich form to start the game anyway. So like I don't know how much I put on that. I put on him either. So I'm not sure. Like I'm trying to read your face and I'm like, does Jamie have me in his votes? But
I've been speaking very glowingly of Jordan Sweet as of late, and it doesn't end here, let me tell you. Because, yes, I do agree with you. I think he did get a bit of a bath early doors in this game of football. DeConing came with a real appetite for destruction.
Unfortunately, unexpected from us. I think I said in the Patreon show, I was like, hopefully DeConing's just continuing to hold himself in cotton wool, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, he didn't. Yeah, they got an almighty rev up from Vossi, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I thought as the game wore on, Jordan Sweet just made me even more comfortable with where he is at heading into next year. Just some of the midfield work as well in the second half. I watched the second half last night, and off the back of only watching the first half and being a bit suspect, obviously mostly due to that first quarter. But yeah, he's smashing hit outs. It's hit outs to advantage still. He didn't beat them combined this week though, in hit outs to advantage, but he still had the highest statistical number hit outs to advantage out of any ruck on the field. It's disposals, it's contested possessions, it's disposal efficiency, it's marks.
Pressure acts.
I loved his game. His game. There was a couple of stoppages in the second half where it was like no one else is getting the ball. So he just got dirty and swept it up off the ground and exploded out of a stoppage to then start a chain of possession. And that's the stuff that we were hoping for, and it's what we saw to an extent at the start of the season. Again, I'm reheating soup now because I've said it a few times over the last month. He's had a dip, and now he's come back handsomely on his own, predominantly as well from a ruck point of view, with Viz going down, not really having a genuine backup. He's having to put in a lot of man hours, and he's doing. I think he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. I think that's what's impressive about it is the fact that he's often doing especially the last few weeks, he's gone up against proper dual ruck setups with highly talented opposing rucks. And then, sometimes, Freo was two very, very talented rucks. This week was, De Koning and then a young, 3-gamer or whatever it was in O'Keefe, but still Sweet's having to do all the work while, they were able to switch off and give De Koning breaks and whatnot. So, I think he gave us a fair bit of opportunity. It's just that, again, it goes back to kind of how we started the show and the contested ball and the Bruise Free Footy. If you're not ready to get down and dirty under your ruckman doing the hard work, then you're not really going to have too much. Unfortunately, you're not going to have a whole lot of fun out there as far as a midfield group goes. Sorry, I was losing my train of how I wanted to frame that, but Sweet's numbers were still quite good, and he deserves some props. And it's funny, again, I think we've talked about this a few times in the past few weeks, but the fact that we kind of started the year with being comfortable with him, we had a little dip in confidence, both with his downfall in form for a bit there and his drop out of the side. But since he's come back in, I think it shows. Even particularly, across the season, it shows that he can take criticism well and maybe take some learnings and figure it out with the coaching group. And even in game, gets a bath early, bounces back and provides us some opportunity. Unfortunately, a game that really wasn't going to have too much opportunity for us as a competitive outfit, but he certainly can hold his head high. I think again after this one, which is good. And again, like you said, feeling a lot more comfortable again going into 2026 with him. As long as he's fit, I think he's going to provide a lot of opportunity, particularly if we can actually find form for the midfield around him again. That's going to be the biggest question. Get a group around him that can work with him, and let him cook.
Yeah, let him cook. Absolutely, with the help of Dante.
Yes,
a fit Dante coming back in as well.
Yeah,
could be a good duo to look forward to next season.
Yeah. I don't have anything more. I'm happy to get to the segments if you are. The defensive lineup, they gave up the 65 inside 50s, unfortunately, because of the midfield. So I'm not going to, not too much to watch there. I think they just got hung out to dry again, unfortunately, the defense. So we've talked plenty about them across the year. So I think they're just they're looking forward to the off season and hopefully a rebuild across the off season as well for our defense. But yes. Let's get to the segments. We've got Wilson Gray coming up first.
Down, Gray doing brilliantly, getting through to Monfries. That's Gray at his best.
Wilson kicks hard and kicks cruelly.
Robbie, who was, like we said at the top of the show, he was at the game, which was nice to see him seeing off his great mate, Travis Spoke, in his last game interstate. Last week's Wilson Gray winner was Jamie's nomination in Mitch Georgiades' mark. What was that, up on the wing, I think? Pretty good specky against Freo. Won in what was a close vote, 55 to 45%. But another Mitch Specky takes out the Wilson Gray nomination for last week. I get to go first this week, and I wrote this one down when I was at Pirate Life watching the game, and it's just one I kind of touched on it at the earlier in the show as well. I just wanted to give a little bit of a different one. I don't nominate these ones too often, but I kind of wanted to give a little bit of love to Joe Berry and a little back half to front half run and carry he had just involved in the play. About 2.5 minutes to go in the first quarter, I've got written down here. He kind of starts to play at halfback, a little bit of handball back and forth, and then the play progresses down the field. He stays with it and ends up in a little bit more of a chain of possession. He stays with the play and ends up with possession again. Don't know if we do much going inside 50. I can't recall that now, but Joe Berry just being involved, his work rate really just impressed me in that moment. It kind of gave me a little bit of a throwback to what we had the award named in our first year doing the podcast together last year in the Sweeney. Just a little bit of that, Like I had that little, like just a little smile just watching him run and the way
Yeah.
he made me feel good. So yeah, a little bit of Joe Berry run and carry in the towards the end of the first quarter when we did finally get a little bit of run and carry as a team going as well.
And that little fishtail got it to Darcy Byrne-Jones, who heads to Berry and turns and goes. Brilliant. To Sweet. Richards.
It's the handball.
Drew. Yep. Berry. Feeds it further on. Marias. Bumped on the kick. You asked for Sargent.
Yeah, I love that from you. I'm just picturing him, with that splitting run. Again, warms the cockles going forward. So great by you. Similar type players, I guess you could say. I've gone for the start of the second half, so start of the third quarter, about 10 seconds in. I think the ball, after the initial stoppage, ends up on a wing. And Zach Butters, just in true Zach Butters form, never giving in type stuff, involves himself in play, and he gathers the ball, kind of zip-zacks as he does, and then he loses the ball, but then he gets it back and he still drives it forward. It just kind of epitomized Zach Butters, and it's a little bit funny because it perhaps epitomizes that just not everything's going right at the moment for Port Adelaide, and that highlighted it. But in true Zach fashion, to draw it back to the individual, he's still just that good that he still just gathers it and goes on his merry way.
He's out of the game. Josh Sin. Liddy feeds it. Butters lost it. Walsh. Oh, Butters was superb. Ran to Walsh. Ran to a brick wall. Still got the Sharon. Sard mops up that little mess. Flynn Young, Hewitt. Pocket picked by Butters. Knocked it to Drew. To Boak.
Yeah. I love the term zip zack. That's very, very good. I'm gonna. I think you have used that one.
Yeah,
before, but
I think I got it from. There's a Facebook page, Port Adelaide True Believers. I think it was called, which is, thankfully not one of those pages that just continually hang shit on players and officials at the club. So, one of the old admins was his nickname for Zach.
Yeah. Yeah, Zip Zack. It's a very good one, and he was very, very, very much a Zip Zack in that moment for sure. And I love that. A couple of good little I guess plays that I don't know what they're just the plays that kind of epitomise why, like, somewhat our year, as you said, kind of not going right, but there's still like little just glimpses of what we love about footy and what we can get out of this team, and certainly what we hope is coming for them going forward. I love that. Let's get to the goal of the week.
Monfries has kicked a goal. Unbelievable. Haven't seen anything like that. It's gone at right angle.
Flashpoint, Stevie Modloff, what a time! Oh! He is floating on air now!
Oh, how I wish back to be back in times that we were floating on air, but alas, not too much more of that this year in the men's side. But anyway, we still do have a few good goals in this one. Just to touch on what won last week before I let Jamie go first in our Goal of the Week nominations for this week. Mesmerising Lukosius in one of his last good moments of the year as well. It's just everyone keeps getting injured. I hate it. But Lukosius in that great goal that he scored against Freo, where he kind of ducked around, tapped it to himself, and then sold some candy and kicked a nice goal against Freo. He won the nomination for last week. I think 70 or 80% of the vote. Most were pretty keen on that one, which is good to see because
it's been given nowhere near the amount of attention that it should across the AFL landscape. Like, it's a fucking sensational goal.
Yeah, especially with the candy sold at the end too, just absolutely selling a defender. Just what's the term? Like, I always remember, like, the Anfield Rap does they had a shirt made for when Sadio Mane burnt Manuel Neuer in the Champions League quarterfinal or whatever. They like sent him for the Bild, like the local paper in Germany, and like so it's a real sent whoever that defender was that Luko burnt there was like he sent him for the West Australian with that turn of that was just an absolute ankle breaking move. So. Yeah, no, loved it. Glad it got up though. It was a very, very good. I think it was Berry's goal that was up against, and which would have been very, very
yes.
So two very good ones out of last week. But yeah, you get to go first this week. There was a few good ones in this one as well, which was nice. Just in the patches that we played well, we kicked some good goals.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, there's wholesome stuff, and then there's some set shot stuff. But I am going to go with. We love a set shot from a pocket and deep in the pocket. So fourth quarter, Joe Richards just splits the eye of a needle basically and kicks truly. Love that type of stuff. It kind of, I think it's a highlight of his game, particularly since coming over to us this season.
Yeah.
He's done it quite a few times from deep in the pocket on either side. Just a fantastic forwards goal. Not going on the check side, kicking truly and putting it in.
Richards. See if he pulls this to the top of the square or goes for it.
Set a shot.
He goes for it and he shapes it and he gets it. Goal.
That's a very nice kick.
He's got some talent, this lad.
He has. He was excellent at the pies, and I think there he could see it and pull the trigger, and he was able to see that his teammate was going to pop into that hole. Oh, nice.
Yeah. No, it was a beautiful goal. I actually just watched the YouTube compilation of goals again, like earlier, and just love that one. Picked that one right out, and that was going to be my first vote, and then I was a little bit torn. Well, I was thinking, I know you're probably thinking I was going to go with Boak straight away if I had the first pick, but I'm actually gonna. God, I hate to do it. I'm not going to put Boak in, even though it was a nice snap and a great finish to open the scoring. But I was really, really impressed, and I guess it's like early doors for what we know, like what we're seeing from Jack Whitlock, and I think his set shot for his second goal, which was from about 50. I think really that run really tickled me because I was like, okay, this, he's dobbing him. He had, his third goal was like around the body stuff. I think it was a very good Joe Richards setup for that one as well. And actually, no, I think it was Jed McEntee actually that set that one up. So a nice little score involved.
I think you might be right there.
Yeah, he kind of just pulled it across the face of goal, and it kind of looked like, but he had seen that Jack had gotten out the back there for that third one. But yeah, I'm nominating his second goal from 50 set shot.
Farrell. And that's a delightful pass to Whitlock, who's given them a target.
It's in his hands. And that was another example of it.
He had an 800-plus metres game early this year against Sydney, where he dominated. His ability to hit a target long. Strike. Whitlock starting to find his mojo in game 3. He's got a couple.
It's a nice action.
Never looked like missing. A great shot from Jack Whitlock, who showed us a bit of the bag of tricks he's got, and both being able to find the space to get the opportunities and then finish the opportunities as well, which is really important. Jack Whitlock is my nomination. Feel bad not nominating Travis Boak's opener because it was very, very good, but I feel like if I nominate Boakey, then it might set it up as a little bit more of a sympathy, like an emotional vote for people, and I want to kind of maybe I'm playing.
I thought you'd go the first goal for Jack Whitlock being his first goal.
I thought
tugging
about
at the heartstrings.
I did think about that, but I was like, that one was a tiny bit more elementary. Still, like its first goal, there's a pressure.
Yeah,
but the second one, it's
absolutely.
That one really got me up and about when I watched it happen as well. So I was excited about that. And first goal from a decent spot. You go, okay, he's got the first one. It's what can he do after that? And he stayed locked in and. Third one's very, very good as well, considering it required a slightly different set of skills. But, real taken areas. He's got to select. He's got some skills, and he's going to kill some teams in the future, hopefully. So, love that from Whitlock. Let's get to the votes and finish out their second to last game of the Boak career in votes, unfortunately. But let's get to them. Now it's time for the CREEDCAST Player of the Year voting. It is. It's starting to feel real that we're not going to have too many more games that we're going to be looking at Boak stats in the team sheet. But it'll be interesting to see where you go with yours. But I get to go first. I was actually very, very torn on my one spot, and I had Sweet and Drew there up until very, very recently. And we talked about Sweet before. I've just decided. As we were talking about it, actually, that I'm deciding to give it to Sweet. He was going to be an honourable mention. And I'll leave my honourable mentions until you've gone as well. But I've decided to throw Jordan Sweet in there. I was a bit up and down on that at first and we've already gone through his stats. But I ultimately, the early doors with De Koning kind of swayed me away from it for a while, but then I kind of swung back to it, and ultimately, just I think he's deserving of it, both in his stats as well as his application to just staying in the contest. I think is the mental side of it is really important, and something that's impressed me more and more as we've gone on with Jordan Sweet this year. So yeah, had to give it to him for the 1 vote. Going with Christian Moraes for the 2 votes. I actually think he really impressed. You touched on it earlier that he only had 47% time on ground, but made the most of it to be one of our top disposal getters. Only 3 less than the a few like Rosie and Boak. Beyond Butters being up at 29, a lot of guys were down in the lower 20s, and Moraes was right behind. When you look at the time and ground numbers for his compatriots around him, they're all in the 80% numbers, and he was 30-40% less than all of them, right down to, I think Ollie Wines was the next lowest in 66. So yeah, time on ground, what he did with it, 19 disposals at 73%. He had the 7 score involvements, was really impressive. He kicked a goal. Had the 3 tackles, the 4 inside 50s. Just a very good game from a player that isn't being shown a lot of trust yet in the fact that he is being named sub every week, it seems. He did get I guess it's not lucky, but with Josh Sinn going off, he gets on earlier than he expected, and gets on the field and makes the most of his opportunities. Travis Boak with the 3 votes. I think to do, you would have, if it was 5 years ago, I would have been like expecting more out of him, but he's at the second to last game of his career. He's admitted that the body's finally starting to, let go a little bit as far as what he expects out of himself, and that's part of the reason he's gone to the retirement decision. To still go 22 disposals, 10 contested. He led us for metres gained on the field with 426. He has, 5 marks, 5 clearances. Kind of tries to lead the way. He's clearly not being able to do what he wants to do in the past, but still trying to show the way for the younger fellas out there. And I can't ask for much more than that in what was game 386 for him. So yeah, great stuff from Boak. I've gone with Connor Rosie at the 4 votes. I think a lot of these guys probably, they've had better games. Like it's kind of like the not all things are created equal. Like 4 votes in this game isn't the same as 4 votes in a game we win by 30 or 40 points against a good team, But Rosie, 22 disposals, 68%, 9 contested, 7 rebound 50s, 3 inside 50s. He had 380 metres gained, 7 score involvements, 5 intercept possessions as well. I've seen better Rosie games, but I also think he's still. I wonder how much that hand is still bothering him, and that's something that I take into account. He obviously had, and when it might be the only time I touch on it, you can speak to it if you want, but a horrible, dumb rumor going out that would have been that kind of stuff does seriously affect anyone. But when you're in the public eye like that, and you have to deal with the kind of shit he's had to deal with in the past fortnight, 3 or 4 weeks, whatever it's been, and what he spoke to on the radio. Again, don't need to go into it, but I take that into account as well for him still going out there and, we're both battling physical injury and there's the mental turmoil of things such as that. I think he's probably performing okay, considering all of those things. So, yeah, Connor Rosie at the 4 and, Zach Butters, Zip Zach at the 5 votes. Again, not the best Zach Butters game for a 5-vote game, but 29 disposals, 14 contested, 75%, 8 clearances, the 5 score involvement, 7 tackles. It's a decent Zach Butters line. If we'd won the game, it's just unfortunately, it's you lose by 54. So you kind of have your criticism. They're all players I could criticize a little bit, but Butters does still try his heart out. He let us in a lot of areas there, both in disposals and contested possession, and used the ball better than the team was as a whole. So, gave Butters the 5 votes, and I think the team gave him the MVP as well, the social media team or whatever.
Yeah.
Not that I often go with that, but I just think there's a discrepancy there enough that Butters is the clear best on ground, even though it's kind of not all best on grounds are created equal, because we lost by 54 points after being down by 70 odd at one point. So it's just is what it is. But that's where I landed. It was a tough one. It was one of the toughest weeks for me, the votes this week. I found it really difficult to try to nail down what I wanted to reward and whatnot. But I got there. And I'll let you.
And it's tough when, it's all coming to an end, and you're just like, oh, okay, I got to do votes now. Honourable mentions for me to Liddy, who briefly spoke about before. Thought it was a great wingers game from him in context of how he's come into the side. Aliir Elias, I just fucking again, knocked in the leg, rolled his ankle, clearly impeded, but just a guy that is digging deep to contribute. That's for certain.
Yeah.
I've given my one vote to Kane Farrell.
Yeah.
You briefly touched on the defense being sold out again. Absolutely, they did. But along with Aliir, I thought Kane Farrell just continued his better than good finish to the season. I think he's been a highlight across the last 6 to 8 weeks, more so the last 6 weeks. But 17 disposals, 14 of which were kicks, and he went at 82.4%. So there was one moment in the game where I don't know if he had the ball yet, but Durham was going off on a tangent about how if there's any player, perhaps in the AFL or particularly Port, that he's getting it to every single time, it's Kane Farrell. And then Kane Farrell either did get the ball or he already had the ball, and he's just kicked a 50-meter absolute arrow straight to a teammate, which just epitomized what Durham was going off on a tangent with. 3 contested possessions, 5 marks though as well, and he only had the 2 rebound 50s. I thought it was more than that on the day. 5 score involvements though, on a low scoring affair. Chris Moraes is 2 for all the reasons you mentioned before, particularly because of time on ground. Like, that's just ridiculous if you extrapolate that out further. Say add another 40%. If you want to work in hypotheticals, 87% time on ground, and see where that lands you.
You'd say he should be, best on above Butters if everything else is equal. Obviously, sliding doors. Butterfly.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, he'd be giving it a nudge. Fair call. That's all we've got to do now, though, is try and work in hypotheticals and fantasy land, because we've got no finals to look forward to.
Where weird Ashton Kutcher movies from 2002.
Yeah, weird references to any movie, really. My 3 votes goes to Jordan Sweet. I'm pretty sure I gave it away with my glowing assessment of his game that I had him in my votes. Pretty much said all I needed to say, though, and you did put him in your votes in the end, so you're going through the stats. Just, again, really happy with the way he's finished the season. Really happy for him. He's a Port boy at heart. Josh Carr was his coach at North Adelaide, so it's kind of coming a little bit full circle. So I'm really excited for 2026 in that regard, as with Josh Carr as his full-time head coach at AFL level. Connor Rosie and Zach Butters 4 and 5 for me as well. Connor Rosie was actually our highest champion data rated player, and yes, his hand, like, he was on radio last week leading up to the game, and they asked him straight out, is it broken or is it? And he said, yeah, it's broken. He's just getting jabs every week or potentially a couple of times a game.
And there are still Tuesdays out there that want to say he's not fucking tough.
Well, yeah. Well, we will disagree with that until the cows come home at this podcast. But I believe it was Kim Dillon and Michelangelo Rucci that he was talking to. It may not have been, but, people with experience in the game are just, medicos make the decision. If he keeps playing, is it going to make it worse? If no, and he wants to play, then he plays. And he clearly is playing. He wants to lead his side, and he's still clearly capable of impacting a game of football at some level. Again, we're crawling our way to the finish line here.
Yeah.
And Zach Butters, best on ground. Obviously, a lot of Zach Butters things, but even I saw, some glimpses of just utter frustration under the surface from him within the context of the game, but within the context of the season as well. Like, and he generally saves all his frustration or angst to take it out on opposition players, or there are those occasions where some of his teammates perhaps make a poor option and he kind of gives it to them straight, which we love as well. But it was just some body language stuff and it wasn't much, it wasn't egregious. It's just perhaps me looking too far into things sometimes, but it did just allude to a bit of, like, in this season, just fucking end already kind of thing.
Yes, can it, please? That would be wonderful. And it is, I guess, if you're done with the votes, then I guess we can head on to briefly mentioning what's coming up for obviously our last week this week. And while I do say kind of facetiously, yes, can it end already? It is also with a touch of, not even just a touch of sadness. I think it's going to hit us all quite heavily this week as we come towards Friday night and Travis Boak's last game for Port Adelaide and last game in his career. So a time for celebration. Obviously, I'll mention it's Ken Hinkley's last game as coach for Port Adelaide as well. It is also Connor Rosie's 150th coming up as well, which should be celebrated, and he should be celebrated as he will continue to be our leader for the and a great player for us as going forward. So there's reasons for celebration. Pull a stick out of your ass. Anyone out there that wants to, question why, Ken and Trav are sharing this. Like it's some people out there just want to saying, "Oh, Trav's been wheeled out to, take the heat." And it's just like, no, Trav is retiring and is off his own back, and Ken's also just finishing up the end of this year. It's just what happens. So, you can celebrate one or the other, or you can do, just be thankful for Trav, whatever it may be. But it is their last game.
Just don't be a dick.
Yeah, that's where I guess what I was trying to boil it down to. So, thank you, Jamie, for his the crispness of how I was trying to metabolize that. It is just a tough week to try to metabolize everything that we're feeling as we come towards the end of the year as well. But yes, Gold Coast at Adelaide Oval, 7:40 this Friday night, 7:40 this Friday night at Adelaide Oval for all those reasons. Obviously, extensive injury list. Where also probably the main thing that's changing from previous weeks, because the injury list hasn't actually changed much, has gone from last game to this, but the big one is Ollie Wines. It seems like he will be missing. It just came through tonight, just before we started recording, that the Port Adelaide failed in their appeal, so that's really the only change to the side, more or less. Aliir is listed as a test with his ankle as well. He's been battling everything. That's probably the big major one as well. I'm sure he will want to get out there to play in Trav's last game as well. So probably similar to the sentiments we just had with Rosie. If they look at it and go, ankles are a bit more testy, so it'd be interesting to see how the medicos work with that one. But Ali is probably the only question mark, obviously with Ollie already ruled out for suspension reasons. I guess how are you feeling about this week? Both our prospects and just the occasion that it will be.
Oh, look, it could be very bittersweet from a football point of view. Like, it's a real shame that the team that is picked to play will try their darndest at some point in their game, hopefully straight off the bat. But unfortunately, I just don't think we're up to it at all. And Gold Coast will want to absolutely make sure that they're in finals before they have their catch-up game against Essendon, which doesn't hold us in good stead either. So from a match point of view, which is all we're kind of discussing at this point, not confident whatsoever, unfortunately, but I'll be there. I've been lucky enough to be handed an MTX Club ticket to go on Friday, which is well received by me, and it was quite a surprise. So I'll be enjoying everything that comes with that, of course, to the nth degree. But look, I just hope we represent ourselves, Boakey, Ken and Connor, as well as we possibly can. And look, after Friday night, there is no more football. So what better reason to put it all out there one last time? That's all we can kind of hope for, I think. Yeah.
And it is somewhat, a funny way to look at it, but we can still play spoil sports for Gold Coast. And I know Ross Lyon, when the St Kilda question came up a few weeks back, he said, yeah, we'll play. He kind of just embraced it. This is all we can do, so let's just do it. And St Kilda have won a bunch, 4 games in a row since. So yeah, and Gold Coast, that's all there is to play. But winning Travis Boak's last game and going out on a high, going into the off season, could be an important little boost towards what we can, just something for them, a little taster for your Murrays and your Whitlocks and your Berries and the young guys, even Joe Richards, who's played a good year, and just all these guys that are new into the team. But then as well as the guys, your Rosie, I'm sure would love to go into the off season after what has been up and down year for him, mostly up as far as his form goes when he's playing, like when he's fit. But it's just been one of those years. So yeah, there's a lot.
I mean, he was in All Australian contention. He may even still get a squad of 40 on a half back line. Connor Rosie.
I think that would be incredible and worthwhile as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot to play for in between the lines for the guys this week. Unfortunately, it's just nothing in the grand scheme of what an AFL season is meant to mean. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, like you, I'll be down there and being celebrating all those people to the fullest. But I think particularly just to be there for Travis Boak's send off. We were both there for Robbie Gray's, and that was pretty emotional and well done one. So hopefully we can kind of put it on even if it doesn't end up in a win, just put on a performance to be proud of is probably what I'm asking for. Nothing like we've seen. No, the Freo performance is one of those. So if we can do one of those and then find our way to a win, that would be wonderful. But if it's is what it is, looking forward to it either way. And we'll see off the season. And I guess we'll be here this time this week to kind of break down the game it was and probably the event and occasion it was, and a season review, a review of the second half in particular, and the season as a whole will be coming in the week or so after that as well from us. So, looking forward to it all. Do you have anything else on this game and everything that's gone with it? Or are you happy to wrap up and take a quick break and get to the W?
I just would like to know if you wanted to talk about Ollie Wine's suspension.
No, I guess we did touch on that before, but we didn't actually touch on the manner of which it was, how the suspension came about, did we? I'd be happy to say that's fucking bullshit. How do you?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth. I've generally been on the side of the AFL more often than not when it comes to bumping off the ball after the disposal. But I think this firmly falls into the football incident type category. And I think when you look at it in reality, which we all think we like to live in, the way I see it is that he bumped a guy shoulder to shoulder while the guy was in a kicking motion, and said guy was at the time well enough to play out the half and then start the third quarter. So how can anyone definitively say that that's what caused delayed onset of concussion? Obviously, it's the most likely. But I think just obviously there is the layer of bias coming from a Port Adelaide podcast. But I don't think this one fits the bill in regards to we're trying to stamp this out. No one's trying to stamp out a body check while someone is kicking. We see it all the time. It's unfortunate. If Cooper Lauder's got delayed onset of concussion, but I think suspending players for 3 weeks is ridiculous. I don't even think that Ollie Wine should be suspended at all. It was not an egregious act. There was no malice in it whatsoever. It was a genuine football act. I don't really like that.
That is kind
not
of
a fan of that saying. It's kind of cliche.
Use in the current, I guess the current lexicon in discussing these kind of events. It's like we talk about football acts versus non-football acts, and in that respect, you're correct though. It was a football bump and a very fair one at that. That's the problem. Is like
it was hardly a bump from where I saw it, and that's why I paused to say that. Because it was more or less edging him off balance. And sure, Ollie Wines is a huge person, and Cooper Lord is a very raw player in the AFL system, but he was in the act of kicking, and again, he played out the half, and he started the third quarter. So how can the AFL Tribunal definitively say that that was the cause of the delayed concussion?
Yeah. Yeah, unless you get an independent, at this point, you need to get like independent tribunals in that watch that footage extensively. Slow it down to body science and how the head moves, and then you need to track Cooper Lord's every possession, every tackle, every marking attempt after that, and see what else happened after that, and go, oh, is there a chance it was that? Is there a chance it was that? And then you don't know when's
Well, checking Carlton's captain's run or their warm up, or a tackle that happened in the first quarter, or
anything that happened prior. Yes, yeah, you are correct.
Because we know the incidents where someone does get lined up and the shoulder does make clear contact to the head, and someone gets knocked out cold, and they get subbed off in concussion. We're all aware of that. And them upgrading contact to severe in that regard. But I feel like this is such a tightrope.
Impact severe because of what occurred, even though you can't definitively prove that it was that. You kind of going 1 + 1 = 3 with the way they've tribunaled it. Is that that's a term now?
Yeah. Well, and just as an extension of that, in regards to Port Adelaide Football Club, I don't think our fucking lawyers helped one iota again.
I think
which is an indictment on our process when challenging suspensions, because I've read some of his name escapes me, and I love him. The AFL Fox Footy.
Oh, Zeta.
David Zeta, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a few excerpts, Mr. Schnitz, yeah. And just hearing, and because in the end, they were only, instead of trying to get it removed altogether, all they were going for is a reduction from severe to high. And I don't think that's right. And then in the end, they were going for the extenuating circumstances vis-a-vis like Charlie Cameron, was it last season, who got let off for his good character?
Yeah.
And I agree that Ollie Wines has got a fantastic character, and has a proven track record in that regard over the course of his whole career. But oh my gosh, seeing some of our defenses of suspensions in recent time has been a little bit embarrassing, to be honest. But we're only in that situation in this regard.
It's
based on what I think is not even a knee-jerk. It's just a breakdown of everything we understand about football, in my opinion. Particularly because I don't think it's actually a genuine bump. I think he's edged him off the ball.
It's just gone side on.
Kept the ball handler honest in that regard, so it's not a soft edging of the football. And sorry for those more innuendos coming with the word edging.
You've said edging a lot. Just let it go through the keeper, but yeah,
we're acknowledging it now. But I mean, I don't know, again, because I don't want to call it a bump, because I don't think it was.
It's just side on contact.
What I don't,
right?
I don't,
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to tie myself in knots here. But yeah, I think it's fucking bullshit. To go off what you said off the top.
Yeah, I mean, I just retweet, like, I've obviously been busy with wifey, better half, in town, and not kind of consuming as much content over the weekend beyond watching the actual games. But just when I saw, because I didn't even catch it properly when I watched it. Although was that when but when even watching it on replay, like, it was actually just seeing the tweet out there from like the AFL account or whatever, but then seeing, Dan Does Footy and all those just replay, do their reels, and Dan Gorringe with his games gone. Where's the instant? Like, it's just like, and that's what I kind of. It's just like games. I hate doing that hyperbole, and it was kind of done in a way to just stoke that feeling. But that is, those are the ones that even for us who try to be, as we're just footy nuffies, until the sport fucking burns to the ground, like we'll be there for it. But these are the ones that do make you go, what the fuck are we doing in this game? Like the AFL has, I mean, you were just talking about tying yourself in knots. The AFL's tied itself in an inescapable knot of what they want the game to be as far as head injuries and eradicating that kind of fear of repercussion for them as a league. But then any package that's narrated by Matt Nable, who does a wonderful job, by the way, is slow motion, fast hitting contact sport, like AFL, men's sport, and we're about to talk about the AFLW, so I'm not meaning it in that way, but that's kind of that facetious way that they still try to market the sport, but they're as soon as like someone does side on contact that is completely, barely noticeable in live play, they even made notice. I think some of the shows have made note of the fact that commentators barely fucking passed. When there's actual, oh shit, that's rough contact. It's made note of both in commentary and the crowd generally. Isaac Rankin, Dan Houston, one from last year is probably the most obvious recent example for us. There's a common sense understanding of what is actual egregious, and that's just not that. And the AFL doesn't know what it wants its sport to be at times, I think, because when you're not even allowing that, but then you market the sport as this rough and tumble thing still, it's a very, very weird place to be. And unfortunately, us fans and obviously the players, like Ollie Wines doesn't deserve to be rubbed out for 3 weeks. That happened even 5 years ago. He's not getting rubbed out for any time at all and barely wouldn't be paying a fine. But now 5 years later, because the AFL's tied itself in these knots there. And
this wouldn't even be a footnote on any conversation. Anyone, whether they support Port Adelaide or not, like we shouldn't be talking about things that are part and parcel of the game. The only one true code that is truly Australian, and that is Australian rules football. This should have
maybe it's the most Australian thing of all.
Not been a fleeting thought.
Injected tall poppy syndrome into our own sport by doing this shit that we don't like. It's insanity, really, and very, very disappointing.
Yeah, I think it's an organization heavily looking after their own pay packets and protecting themselves from litigation writ large. When we've spoken about incidences across the AFL over the last nearly 2 seasons doing this, and I've mentioned it before that from where I sit, I think concussion protocols and the HIAs, the SCAT5 tests, I think that is enough. Obviously, I have no legal background whatsoever, so it's enough you take, but those are the measures that I believe are you doing your due diligence in protecting players from further head trauma or CTE as they progress in life. And I acknowledge that suspending players over the last 2 to 3 years in the way that they has created a reduction in bumping charges and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is we as the football public want room for heavy hits, like you said. Like the way they're going to market the game isn't the way that they administer it when it comes to concussion or aggressive play causing injury. Then they overcorrect, and the football public is full of nuffies, but the wider football public isn't stupid. We know how a game of Australian rules football should look, even with safety as one of its core pillars. It is a workplace, and like serious injury can come from negligence, but it's just ridiculous expecting. And we're not even talking about expecting Ollie Wines to make a decision at a split second, which is the defence that the wider football public makes for incidences that do find players suspended, whether it be chasing a ball and then at the last minute bracing to protect yourself. But no one wants to see anyone suspended for that. It's a shame if someone gets injured or concussed as a result of it, but no one wants to see players ruled out because of it. And and much like this, no one wants to see Ollie Wines miss games for nudging a player off his center of gravity to affect the kick that he was in motion of completing. I dare say we will see a change in the adjudication of such things. And again, to add more darkness to Port Adelaide season, Ollie Wines just unfortunately cops the back end of what is a ridiculous metric that they are forced to go off of. And they're too stubborn. They were too stubborn to change it earlier in the season with I think it was the Paul Curtis tackle on Josh Sim. The downfall of that. That was probably when they could have, or mid-season, made a call on that. But they've gone with the line of not making rules on the run or changing rules on the run or policy on the run.
Which is very
which is funny because they do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
It's hypocrisy at its finest. So yeah, when they could have made a decision that is for the betterment of Australian rules football at the highest level, they didn't. And unfortunately, our Ollie Wines has to suffer because of it. Like you said, not only for Travis Boak's last game, in which he's played over 200 games with him, but the first 2 games of Josh Carr's tenure as head coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we've said time and time again in the last 2 years of this podcast, Ollie Wines has been strangely, for a former Brownlow medalist, highly underrated in how he's kind of helped facilitate this new era of the Port Adelaide midfield, as we've seen the likes of Zach Butters and, Rosie and HORNE-FRANCIS, all those guys coming in and out of it, whatever the mix may be. Ollie Wines is an ever-present part of the last 2 years, and it is disappointing. He misses Boak's last one, and then, projecting forward the first 2 games of the Josh Carr era, which, we're all hopeful will, who knows what the immediate turnaround will be, but that's what we'll be hoping for is immediate, green shoots into the future. So, disappointing for Ollie, but we certainly stand with him. In it's not like it's a major deal, it's a suspension from football, but it is one that certainly I think, and we're not alone in this. It was very, very much more or less universal from what I could see in the footy Twitter sphere of people being just like, this is just not what this game is meant to be, and not what these rules were made for. So, I guess we'll watch with between our fingers, like it's a horror movie, as to how the AFL continues this stuff into 2026, because they're gonna if they keep going down this road, they're just gonna keep racking themselves up in those knots, and we'll be talking about this time and time again. So hopefully some common sense with the kind of some of the new figures coming in might maybe we'll see some changes for the better in how these things are adjudicated. But at the moment, MRO and tribunals and all that stuff are just not doing the job that they're meant to. So, all right, you ready to take a quick break and then get into the W and wrap this one up with them, which certainly plenty to talk about with them as well. But I need a break, so
yeah, let's do it. Thanks
Alrighty.
everyone for listening to our AFL Men's Wrap.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for listening. We encourage you to stick around and. Stick around for the AFLW season, and certainly stick around and listen to us chat about our opening. Unfortunately, our opening loss to Freo. We'll be right back with that in a moment.